wait for one more minute. Oh, hi, Claire. Didn't see that. Ofodum, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Ram. Good day. Hi.
Hey, hi, Sandra. Nice to meet you. Okay, maybe we can start, and I think people will continue joining. Thanks to the speakers for agreeing to come and talk with the projects today, and thanks for the projects for joining another webinar. So in 2021 we're funding 21 projects, and I was just telling Ghina, we are arranging these webinars with all the projects to help fill in the gaps in their skills and their expertise wherever is needed. We had a webinar on fundraising run by Genevieve here a couple of months ago. One on development and development economics run by OAD fellow Tawanda, and this will be the third one. So with that, maybe I can call upon Ofodum to share his experience in running an OAD project, and share with the current projects, especially on how to make a project sustainable, how to keep that project going once the OAD funding runs out. Ofodum, you can begin.
Okay, thank you. I think, can I share my screen, or can I just talk like that?
Do you have a presentation?
Yeah, I prefer.
I will just let you share the screen. Yeah, you should be able to share.
Okay. 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 So, good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ofodum Chukwujekwu, and I'm here to relay our experience concerning Pan-African School for Emerging Astronomers, overcoming challenges to create a sustainable Pan-African project. You see, PASIA, Pan-African School for Emerging Astronomers, was formerly known as West African International Summer School for Young Astronomers. It was originally meant for students from West Africa, though it was started in Nigeria as a result of discussion between astronomers from Nigeria and astronomers from Canada during the 2012 IAU General Assembly. WAISSYA is an experimental short course in astronomy and space science, which is designed to address the human capital needs of Africa, thereby fostering socio-economic development in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals like education, reduced inequality, hunger, and the gender balance. Then, from inception, we started this program, WAISSYA, in Nigeria, but our desire was to make it a Pan-African project from inception. That's just the truth. Then, the vision we had for WAISSYA then was to build a critical mass of astronomers, scientists, and engineers across West Africa, and also to build a community of African scientists to form a link that will hold them together. And finally, to share ideas about teaching and learning between Africans and people from outside West Africa. Now, how did we succeed in growing WAISSYA from WAISSYA to PASIA, from regional project to Pan-African project? The major factor there, one of the major factors there is oneness of purpose. In WAISSYA, as a team, we believe in teamwork. We believe in superior reasoning. Superior reasoning is the order of the day among WAISSYA facilitators. Everybody is carried along. Then, under this oneness of purpose, I must tell you that each and every one of us is desirous to succeed. We kept on improving towards perfection after every successive WAISSYA. So, what do I mean by this? In every WAISSYA, after every WAISSYA, we strongly believe that there is room for improvement. So we work towards improving in every successive WAISSYA. Then the second sub-factor there is our absolute passion for to make an indelible mark. Each and every one of us working in WAISSYA as a team, we have that passion to leave an indelible mark or footprint by impacting positively on this very generation of Africans. Then the second factor that helps us to sustain WAISSYA is strategic planning. We strongly believe in WAISSYA that once we fail to plan, we have planned to fail. In WAISSYA, we have what we call preschool planning, school planning, and post-school planning. In preschool planning, we strategically choose our host. Like I said earlier, it was started in Nigeria. We hosted the 2013 and 2015 edition in Nigeria. But along the line, we discovered that most of the participants normally comes from Nigeria. So we decided to be moving it around from Nigeria to Ghana in 2017, from Ghana in 2017 to Nigeria again in 2019. Then from 2019, we are moving to Lusaka, Zambia in 2021 because we discovered that the more we move around, the more we capture people from outside Nigeria. Then, in selecting our participants, we also strategically does that because although WAISSYA was meant for West Africa, we always select any people that apply from outside West Africa and make sure that that person is funded to attend because we believe that allowing somebody from outside West Africa to attend will help us to have a footprint outside West Africa. Then, in geographical spread, like I said earlier, for every given WAISSYA, we believe that we have room for improvement. Take, for instance, local against international students ratio in WAISSYA 2013 was 70:1. Just one person attended WAISSYA from outside Nigeria in 2013. But by 2015, we reduced the ratio to 12:1. By 2017, we further reduced it to 5:1. By 2019, we brought it down again to 3:1. That shows you that for every given WAISSYA, we believe in improving on the previous one. The same thing goes to the next subtopic there, which is gender balance, male to female participants. In 2013, it was 82% to 18%. In 2015, it was 80% to 20%. In 2017, it was 76% to 24%. In 2019, it was 62% to 38%, which shows that we believe in improvement in every given WAISSYA. We kept on improving. We kept on striving to improve. Then, in terms of funding WAISSYA, we believe in teamwork. We believe in trust. We believe in sincerity of purpose. We employ crowdfunding. Everybody work assiduously to make sure that we source for fund in order to fund our students, in order for them to attend. Then, during PASSYA itself, during the school, we normally do what we call instructors workshop in order to teach our instructors how to impact the knowledge on the students. We normally use inquiry-based method, which is student-centered and interactive in nature. Then we also believe in pairing our instructors in order to encourage intercultural exchange and assimilation. That is, pairing one instructor from Nigeria and another person from Europe or Asia or Australia or North America, because we believe that by so doing, we will encourage intercultural exchange. Then, for instance, again, on undergraduate stream was the original concept we have for WAISSYA in 2013. But by 2015, we added postgraduate stream to take care of our postgraduate students. Then by 2017, we added the astronomy outreach. Then by 2000, this astronomy outreach is designed to capture local and local primary schools and the local secondary schools. Then by 2019, we added symposium for local universities. With this, you can still see that we have kept on improving, trying to add a new thing for every successive WAISSYA. Then in post-school planning, we strongly believe that planning is the only thing that will sustain our project. So for any given WAISSYA or PASSYA, it takes us 2 years to plan for it. If we end a given series of WAISSYA this year, this month, it takes us just 1 month gap to start planning for the next WAISSYA that will come in 2 years' time. So we strongly believe in planning. It takes us 2 years to plan for any given WAISSYA, and that is why we have never failed. We kept on improving. We also believe so much in extensive evaluation of each PASSYA series, because evaluating what we've been able to achieve will help us to know where we have loopholes, to know where we are going to improve upon, because we believe in sustaining this WAISSYA. Then we also believe in long-term international collaboration, giving a good account of whatsoever fund we receive from our collaborators. And it has helped us a lot in receiving more funds from our collaborators. Finally, we believe so much in keeping track of our students. That was why we introduced mentorship program in 2017. Through this mentorship program, we help our students to get admission to study within Africa and outside Africa, to look for job. We advise them on career opportunities as well as career guidance. So through this, it helps us to keep track of our alumni. And also it helps us to bring in our alumni to work with us as a team, so that it will encourage others, because we discover that most of our students feel so happy to discover that a particular teacher or that a particular facilitator was formerly a WAISSYA student. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's great to. I didn't know all of the work that you do before the school itself. There's a question from Michele.
Yeah, I can hear you.
This is all very, very interesting, and it's great work. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your crowdfunding strategy. Are you crowdfunding with the network of teachers, of the previous alumni, prospective alumni?
Okay, thank you. In terms of crowdfunding, you see, the facilitators, for instance, we believe so much in taking care of our students. We have among us about 20 scientists, engineers that work together to make things happen in WAISSYA or PASSYA. So each and every one of us looks for funds, you understand, from wherever we can see funds. Our responsibility is to draw the attention of our team members that we have fun here. How do we apply? All of us, we put our heads together, write a proposal, source for fun from wherever. So it takes us 2 years, like I said earlier. By the time you source for fun for 2 years, before the WAISSYA itself comes up or the PASSYA comes up, we must have gotten enough fund to take care of our students in terms of transporting them from various countries and so on. That's why I say that planning, it takes us 2 years to make this thing happen. So it's not what we normally wake up one day, and because without that, it will not be easy. So in terms of funding, teachers, for instance, the facilitators look for funding in terms of transportation, flight, and so on. So by the time it is a WAISSYA comes up, most of our facilitators must have gotten their fund to attend. So other funds we get from international donors as well as from the host country, we purely go into taking care of the feeding, accommodation, transportation, and flights for our students. And it has never failed us because it takes us 2 years to plan for every WAISSYA program.
Yes, can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for this very, very interesting school and training of the young astronomer. Have you any idea concerning the previous school held already? What are doing the participants nowadays? Are they doing a master? Are they doing a PhD? Are they became engineers? Are they teachers in secondary school? Are they astronomers? I think astronomers working in a lab, doing research, teaching astronomy as a faculty member. Have you any idea of the participants?
Thank you very much for that. The truth of the matter is that we just published a paper in Nature this February this year. I will share the link. The paper, I might even share the paper with each and one of us. Presently, about 20 of our students are doing their masters outside Africa. And this was made possible through our mentorship program because we help them in sourcing for admission, postgraduate admission. The same thing goes with PhD. We have about 6 or 7 of our students doing their PhDs outside Africa. The same thing, we have helped a lot in terms of helping our students to teach. Most of them are teaching. So the paper we just published this February took care of all these questions you just asked now. And I'm ready to send that paper to each and every one of us to go through. This, you will be marveled of the impact we have made over 6 or 7 years period.
Thanks. If you could just copy the link to that paper in the chat, I will also send it over the email later.
I'll do that now.
Yeah. Sorry, Sandra, I see you have a hand raised, but just in the interest of time, can we hold questions until the end?
Of course. Yeah. No.
Okay. I will share the link also. Thank you very much.
Thanks. So the next presentation, we move on to another school, this time in Nepal. So I invite Clare and Michele to talk about sustainability, but also how they have successfully transitioned to an online school last year.
Okay. First of all, I'm hoping everyone can hear me and that you can see the correct view, not the presenter view. So I'm just going to assume from the nodding that that's all okay. Okay, thank you very much, Ramasamy, for the introduction. I'll be speaking first, and Michele is going to actually tail it. So my job for you today, I'm going to talk to you about the Kathmandu Astrophysics School. Basically, I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then Michele is actually going to cover off the sustainability at the end for everyone. So my name is Clare Kenyon. I am a Teaching and Outreach Fellow at the University of Melbourne, and this is what we're going to talk to you about today. I'm going to introduce the school, let you know what the original plan was for KAS 20, or Kathmandu Astrophysics School 2020, and then talk about how we had to rapidly switched to a fully online mode for obvious reasons. I'll take you through a few of the advantages and also the challenges that we faced and some of the adaptations we took that made it pretty successful. And then, as I said, Michele is going to talk to you about the long-term sustainability of CAS into the future. So CAS, what is it? It's kind of what it says on the tin. It's a school for astrophysics in Kathmandu in Nepal. We like to keep things somewhat simple in astrophysics a lot of the time and give our 3-letter acronyms to say what they say on the tin, and this is no exception. I'm immensely proud of that. So why do we actually need a school in Kathmandu, you might be wondering? Well, first of all, the school was for late undergraduate to early master's students. And we've seen that rates of enrolment in Nepal are quite small, and they're beginning to achieve greater diversity and greater global mobility, but there's a long, long, long way to go. There's also a very stark gender imbalance between obviously male and female students in the tertiary sector. So we thought we'd really like to have an impact on that. So why astrophysics? Well, there are clear links between a burgeoning academic society, so a successful society, academic society, and a healthy, sustainable industrial economy. So there's clear links between tertiary education in science and the success and GDP and industrial nature of countries in general. So we're talking about increased design and innovation, equitable access to resources, and reduction of unemployment. So in CAS 2016 and 2018, which I'll talk about in a minute, our first 2 programs, we've actually demonstrated how such programs can actually be part of addressing this inequality between Nepal and other countries, but also looking at the gender imbalance. So why in Kathmandu, Nepal? Well, first of all, Michele was actually lucky enough, he was part of an organising committee along with Stephanie Kamosa and a couple of other people who organised a black holes conference in Nepal every, I think, 3 years. And they had a little bit of funding left over and they thought, yes, we'll put some money back into Nepal and we'll keep it there and we'll actually run a school for tertiary students. Just on the side, as I'm sure Michele will tell you, he also loves trekking and he loves the Nepali people and the region. And so I think he wanted to give back. And I have been extremely lucky to be involved in this program. We also know that Nepal had a devastating earthquake back in 2015 where they lost a lot of existing infrastructure and a lot of their industrial and technological advances actually suffered as a result. So it was an obvious choice for us. So a little introduction to what we've had before. We did 2016, CAS 16 was actually our pilot program. We ran the school for 35 fully Nepali students. We could only get 11 female students out of 35 students to actually get to the school. And one of those was in fact invited on the opening night dinner. So it was actually really clear to us that we needed to do more to address the gender imbalance. The school consisted of academic lectures, professional development lectures, and also research group work. So they had to give a final presentation and a single-page summary of their research. Following this, we actually looked at mentoring some students, and I'm really happy to say that we had one student admitted to a highly competitive summer internship program at the Space Telescope Science Institute, and she's actually gone on to work further on James Webb with a colleague from that school. Some of the issues we had with CAS 16, we had no resources to support travel or lodging for students. We didn't really have a cultural diversity. We really only had very, very local students. Even though those students were local, the traffic in Kathmandu was quite prohibitively congested and led to long commute times, which meant students often couldn't attend. And they were patchy in attending. So in 2018, we actually applied for a bit of funding from the OAD, the IAU OAD, and we managed to get some, and we put all of that funding towards meals, accommodation, and also all domestic travel. And we also gave a little bit for international travel, which allowed us to actually address the international side of our school. We also managed through a lot more advertising to get gender parity. We actually got exactly half, actually one more than half, female to male participation in CAS 18. And we saw this as a success of advertising, but also resounding success of the program 18 months before. We actually had 264 applications from Nepali students. Majority of those were 253 were male, and 10 out of 11 applications from female students. So the rest we filled in with international students. We still faced issues with load shedding. The season when we had it was June, it was quite muggy. But in the second school, we actually decided we wanted to focus a little bit on Python and coding as well. So not only were we doing academic lectures on introductory science, such as cosmology, you know, stars, stellar astrophysics and all that sort of thing, but we did professional development, which I think was one of the groundbreaking things that we did in this school that was quite different. We looked at giving people tools to actually be in a school classroom to teach, or even a tertiary classroom to teach. We taught them to construct CVs. We talked about actually how to make presentations. And that was one of the best parts of this school. And then we actually added on how to use Python. As I said, we had all these things, and we actually managed to get three different international students in that body. So the original plan for CAS 20 was that we were going to have a 2-week residential school. It was going to be held in Pokhara in Nepal, so to save the traffic problem with Kathmandu. And we were going to base this one on an introduction to astrophysical data analysis and techniques with a strong Python component in there as well. It would again consist of academic lectures, professional development seminars, a group project work with presentation and report, which also had some peer review, and also Python sessions with a data triage. Now you're probably sitting there going, that all sounds great, but how did we do that in person? Well, the truth is that we didn't. We got knocked for 6 by the coronavirus, obviously, the pandemic. And so Michele and I were involved in some very urgent discussions, and we decided to say part 1, and we pivoted to online. So how did we do this? Well, we actually ended up expanding it to 10 weeks rather than a 2-week intensive school. 6 weeks were in at the end of 2020, and then we had a 3-week break over the festival period, and then 4 weeks in 2021. The typical week consisted of an academic lecture, a professional development seminar, a Python component which had a top and tail, so an introductory and a summary lecture, and then also had one custom-made Jupyter notebook for that week, and 3 optional tutorials that they could attend, 1 or all 3 with the same content. We held all of this over Zoom, which was amazing. The university had this as a platform, and I'm so glad we knew how to use it before the pandemic came along, because it actually made things a lot easier. Some challenges we faced: time. Obviously, time around the world is different. So we had to find a time that most people could do. And because 30 of our 61 students were Nepali, and because it is the Kathmandu Astrophysics School, we decided to offer our times always at times that were during normal times for Nepali students. It also took time to maintain a website, to get all the materials together and to get all the lectures together. We also faced access issues with internet. We actually gave some of our money that we were going to a lot for travel bursaries into internet bursaries for the students. And of course there's engagement issues, but we were really, really lucky there because we basically recorded everything. And I'll tell you about a little adaptation that we found really helpful as well in a minute. And the group work we actually just didn't really manage to do for part 1. Some strange advantages we didn't expect to have. Well, it actually became even more global. We had 31 international students and 30 Nepali. We managed to open it up to 60 people rather than the original 25 that we had planned. And that students could actually catch up in their own time. So because all the lectures were recorded, they could actually get there, you know, after a week off going, you know, on holiday or with a family or illness, they could come back and actually catch up. Theoretically, it was less of a block of time for staff. I say theoretically because it ended up being me doing a lot of the things, and that was a big block of time for me, but it was well spent. Also, the pace for learning was actually really beneficial for the students. They had, as I said, 9 or 10 Jupyter notebooks, which actually helped their learning with the coding. Some of them had never seen coding before. Adaptations for success, and I would urge anybody pivoting to online to think about this quite seriously. We had a Google site made completely from scratch, and everything we did was on this site. It kept everything together. So, and it also, we were able to have Gmail addresses for all of our students, which only allowed them to the site. So no external people could access this site because I added them with their Google accounts. This helped with time zones. We did everything in GMT, as you can see, and I had a little counter there. We put all the lectures up through Zoom. We had all of the bios up. We had everything they could ever need. The links to the drive, everything was on this website. The final thing I'll say was an adaptation for success was Slack. This was fantastic for just getting students to chat to each other, to actually go backwards and forwards, ask questions of the tutors, ask general questions. And we had a few channels here, Python, just random stuff that they chatted about, general things, and they also could talk to us as well in there. That was one of the most important adaptations.
Thank you very much, Claire, for the excellent presentation on the CAS history and our adaptation to online only. I will just very briefly conclude with some future plans and lessons learned. My name is Michele Trenti. I'm a professor at the University of Melbourne, and along with Claire, we came up with the idea of the Kathmandu Astrophysics School. And one of the key aspects in terms of lessons learned and recipes for success was to grow a relationship and a network, both internationally with international colleagues keen to help us, as well as locally. So to establish a strong connection to Nepali astronomers, and both internationally and being based in Nepal. The school has now reached the 3rd edition. Our long-term aim is to offer the CAS regularly. And in order to do so, our goal is to achieve financial independence rather than having to rely every couple of years on fund raising. For this, the path that we have identified as the most promising is to build enough track record to then be able to credibly approach philanthropic foundations and organizations to get support for a regular program. Philanthropy is a very crowded space. So our approach is to do one step at a time, and Claire has very nicely summarized how we have grown the Kathmandu Astrophysics School from a self-funded few days initiative added on an international conference to really a global school that had a reach across many countries. So when we organized the CAS, we always had in mind the scalability and impact. And I think that our lessons learned are also very similar to the WAISSYA schools, which I think has covered many other tips and lessons learned for success of similar astrophysics schools. So it was really great to be here and be able to connect and hear more about all the programs that the OAD is supporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Yeah, it's great to hear that the online format is also promising. You might know that the IU runs the International School for Young Astronomers. Michele Gabadi from France is on the steering committee of that. So they have decided to postpone the school. They decided to postpone the 2020 schools. So maybe this might be interesting to them. Maybe we can take one question. Okay, if not, let's move to the next one. This time a science communication focused project from Ghina, which is also a completely online program now.
Thank you, Ram. Hi, everyone. Such wonderful projects, honestly, so inspirational, and well done and good luck and fingers crossed for really solid sustainability for these programs. They're phenomenal. I'm Ghina Halabi. I'm Lebanese. I'm an astrophysicist by background. And as Ram mentioned, my project is She Speaks Science. I think I can share my screen, yeah? Let's see, to show you a few things about what we're doing. My system somehow is not helping me do that. Sorry about that. Ram, do you want to shuffle a bit so that I sort this out? Yeah. And I speak
sure.
after the next one. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Sorry, Paras, are you ready to talk now? If the baby is...
Oh, yes. May not be visible to you, but you will hear me for sure. Let me see if I can share my screen. Just a second.
So Paras and Sonal run the Astrostays OAD flagship. So they began with a pilot project in India. What first interested me in the program is how much effort they spent on engaging the community before actually delivering the project. So I thought it might be interesting to the other projects. You can begin, Paras.
You can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to wherever you are. I am speaking on behalf of Sonal, my partner as well as my colleague in this project called the Astrostays. Is the full screen visible to you, or do you see any kind of, sometimes it's perfectly visible, right, Ram?
Yeah, I see the screen, full screen.
Wonderful. So this, it's a 2-year-old project, of course. Last year was all COVID, so there wasn't any tourism to have any, we can measure any impacts about the project. But the whole project is very focused on trying to involve the community in trying to create a very holistic community development astrotourism model in the mountains, specifically in Ladakh, where we have started this. And I'll keep it short, 10 minutes, as mentioned by Ram. How do we actually engage the community in the whole angle of trying to create a very holistic model? So if I go to the next slide, the Astrostays concept was mainly focused on trying to see if astronomy could act as a tool to create a sustainable development model in the village. It's a very far-fetched thought, but the idea was at the end of the day, all the infrastructure and the assets required by a community require financing. And if astrotourism can bring in livelihood opportunities in the village, which already has a lot of probably catchment area of travelers nearby, then it would be a great way to mobilize those funds into community development as well. And so my presentation is not mostly about how the model is all about, but in terms of how we have engaged the community to make this happen. So the initial idea of the why to community engagement, why the engagement of community is very important. In this photograph, you see this is just one village in the mountain. This is at 14,200 feet in Ladakh. And the person in between is basically a community mobilizer in our terms, but we call it, he's basically a postmaster. So he goes around distributing letters to these villages and he's the best person to, mobilize the community because everyone knows him and he knows everyone. So before we initiate any project, it's very important to have all the community members or the village sit around and understand what is the social intervention we plan to get into the village. In this case, it was astronomy. And you see everyone is very curious, and including the women who have got their young children and the kids in their laps to listen to the thing. So rather than we talking about the concept, we have educated, or we can say we have made one of the community champions like this postmaster aware of the astrotourism project. And then he's the one on our behalf would be speaking to the community. And it becomes easier for the community to listen to the person from their own backyard. So just to give you an idea, when we started the project of Astrostays, the first Astrostay, which is basically a combination of a homestay where a traveler would come and spend a night, plus get a chance to experience the night skies through astronomy or a stargazing session in the night, is what we call an Astrostay. So when we started this in an area in Ladakh, you see the lake at the background. This lake is at 14,000 feet. So we got all the community members aligned, and we told them that this is the project we want to do in this village. And as part of initiative, we had already done some social projects in this particular village earlier. So there was already a small trust we had with them, but doing any social intervention next time, it is important to brief them properly, because if you have the community buy-in, it becomes easier for you to go in. Otherwise, if the community is not involved and you go in and parachute with a project, it becomes very, very difficult. So this was the first, meeting we had with the community. And then we had another meeting where we went and we made sure that out of the community members, or the villagers who were interested the first time, there were few who showed interest to learn astronomy for the second time. So this was the second meeting we had. So what I'm trying to come to is that sometimes it's just a general awareness, and the second time you visit, you actually find the real people who wants to work with you. And then once we were able to visit like these around 15, 16 villages, we chose 2 to 3 people from every village who came and joined our astronomy training sessions at the main city called Leh, where we arranged a training hall and we got them seated in a place. So the idea was to provide them an astronomy workshop and get all people from all different remote villages to this place. And all these villages, they already had awareness of the program which is going to be conducted in their place beforehand, because we had already gone and mobilized them. And the idea was not to create a lecture. Again, now we are having a round group discussion between different villages from different villages, and trying to see which village, how many of them feel that this model would work, how many have different ideas, a debate. So basically a more of a focus group discussion on how an astrotourism model can work along with the homestays. So basically they were discussing, they were taking out the faults and they were giving solutions. So you had a for and against between them, and we were just observing them, which would help us refine our model. And then third was, once the community showed that this is right, this is how we should go ahead, we got the experts, the astronomers in, we got the instruments out, and we started training them. The idea was we were not sure how many of them would actually end up becoming great astronomers or community astronomers. But the idea was just train them and see which one creates more interest. And then it was very important to identify the community champions. It doesn't have to be a young running youth with a high intellect or a very educated youth. It could also be a specially challenged person who has an interest and still wants to make things happen for his village. So here you see a person who probably cannot walk and write, but definitely can speak and talk about stargazing to the travelers in the night. So we made sure that all kinds of people were able to be trained, and we were able to identify community champions. And of course, you can see the delight on his face after he understood what a solar system is, and he could understand the different orientation of the stars in the night he normally used to see. And then, of course, we thought once we have trained them for 3 days at the place, it was important to train these community champions in their own backyard. So go to their own village and install them in front of their eyes, and then train them as well. And before that, it's very important to, it could be a big village, and you may have trained 3 people in that village, but it was very important to get everyone behind them. So here you see one of very respected venerable monks who actually came to see what this interesting concept of astrotourism and community base is happening. So we made a visit. This is an evening shot, and he stayed for the night. And he also got the whole village. This is not a good photograph, I totally understand, but this was taken by a very low resolution camera. But what this signifies is that if you have the community behind your initiative, the champions also feel empowered, and getting someone who's more venerable, like a Buddhist monk, also creates a lesser difference between religion and science as well. And that's what we have been seeing in these areas where Buddhism is practiced a lot. And then the idea was, once you have trained these community members for almost a couple of weeks, staying with them, training them in terms of what does it require to not only show them stargazing sessions, but also what does it take to host a guest, host a traveler, give them an experience for a lifetime. And the idea was to move on, pass on the baton to them. Now they are the astronomers, they don't need us, and then they take it forward from here. So this is how it happened. And then, the things roll. You can see the monk also very interested in trying to see the Jupiter and the Saturn. He had to stay awake till 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night. And then you see little kids, all the travelers coming in. It was a very big, you can say, mela in Indian terms, or you can say a big fest, which happened in that small village. And the idea was we complemented this with lovely homestays in the rooms of the villagers. And that's how the concept of Astrostays came about. You see the night sky, and then you sit in these homes and you get up and see the sun. So, and interesting thing is these telescopes are powered by electricity, which is solar power. So the sun in the morning powers up the battery, which powers up the telescope to show you the stars. So interesting concept of sun and moon powering up the Astrostays. So this is how it worked out for us. And we call them astropreneurs. It's a term which we kind of coined. I don't know if there's a term like that. This is all done by my colleague Sonal. And the idea was, teamwork makes the dream work. So this is a combination of local people. And you can see Sonal wearing the orange cap and the astronomers wearing the pinkish cap, and then one of the greatest astronomers sitting under the board. And this has been a wonderful concept, which we have replicated in a couple of places in Ladakh, and now trying to do it more around India and around the world as well. For us, mobilizing the community, it's most important, because eventually they are the ones who want to take this forward. And that's the concept of Astrostays.
Thank you so much, Bas. I think we have time for maybe one question. If anyone,
I can't see the question. Okay, let me see if I close the
Yes.
screen.
Okay. And can I ask you questions? Yes.
Yes,
maybe I missed something. How long does it take to have the homestay set up? Is it 1 year or 2 years of work? Explaining your goals, and then one family or 2 or 3 families say, well, okay, we will participate, and we have to learn a bit of astronomy, and then to set up the stays at home. How long does it take, all that? Because it's a wonderful project, absolutely wonderful.
The time, it's very subjective to the location it is. To be very frank, this place already had it has a wonderful lake where a lot of travelers and tourists come in the summer season. So it does have a small catchment of the travelers. And this village is just 45 minutes more drive towards from that area. So we just had to attract those travelers to this village. And travel and tourism was already in that area. It wasn't as many folds as it was. And we don't want to overcrowd that place with so many people coming in. Only the people who have the interest would come in. So the idea was to identify, first of all, traveler and tourist locations where we can start it first, because that's a low-hanging fruit. And then, and the second thing important was the community should be very receptive to allowing travelers to stay in their homes, because this is homestays concept. It's not like a resort, it's a community-owned thing. So there were 2 things. So first, identify village, which was open to homestays and travelers. And secondly, the concept of trying to teach them science and astronomy among the youth who should be interested. For us, I think already a good village, which may have a traveler footprint, it may just take us 1 month to set it up, including astronomy training and the homestay setup. Or sometimes it may take up 5 to 6 months, where you have to create a circuit, try to train them and try to create some initial traction and footprint, and then get them motivated. So anytime between 1 month to 6 months, based on the location and the interest of the villagers, is that the answer to the question?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks again, Paras. So the last person, Ghina, is your laptop back online?
Yes, it's ready. Thank you. I'll be able to share once the sharing stops, the current sharing stops.
Okay, perfect. Paras, could you unshare your presentation?
Cool, let's try. Perfect. I think you can see my slide.
Yeah.
Perfect. So thank you again. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you today about She Speaks Science. She Speaks Science is a social enterprise that aims to do two things. Number one is to promote a positive identity around STEM. So who is a scientist and what does success mean in science, technology, engineering, and maths? And the second aim, as the name says, to promote women doing impactful STEM research. And funny that we really have to keep saying this, to normalize the presence of women in STEM as role models for the younger generation. And our tagline is own your story. So women own their stories and share them with the world so that they become visible. And the young people own their stories about maybe wanting to become an astronaut or a chemist or a biologist or whatever it is. And so they believe that they can actually do it. And who is to tell them otherwise? The way we do this is through three different things. Number one is stories. So it started by me telling stories about my research, and then it opened up to having storytellers from all over the globe. Chile, the US, Europe, Jordan, Iran, all over the globe, storytellers, women doing impactful research in all disciplines, share these stories. And because of our global reach, we are in more than 130 countries and we have more than 11,000 readers across the globe. We started translating these stories they originally appeared in English. We started translating them to Arabic because of my background as a Lebanese woman, Spanish, Italian, and German. The second, and I will talk a little bit more about these stories to show you a little bit. The second one is workshops. Instead of parachuting into a classroom once or twice a year, telling them about astronomy, for example, just before the pandemic, we started doing it through storytelling in a way that we explore how does it look like, how does it feel like, what do we need to go to Mars, what kind of problems would we encounter, what kind of things we need, etc. But the pandemic cut that short. The third and new thing we pivoted to with the everything going global is mentorship, which I will also talk a little bit about. So this is a sample of the stories we have published so far. You can see it's from biology and medicine to astronomy, conservation, space exploration, many different topics. And these are submitted by, famous scientists like Dame Jocelyn Bell, who discovered pulsars, or entrepreneurs in space exploration, or researchers in Cambridge University, where I'm now based, and elsewhere. And mentorship, with the pandemic and everyone has become online, we asked, with the help of the IAU OAD funding, we were able to launch Penta 5. And the idea of Penta is that we have a cohort, a small, tiny cohort of women and girls from around the globe. And we made sure that we get people from 5 different regions: Latin America, Europe, the US, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and women from 5 different career stages. So an executive level in STEM career, professional level, university students, high school students, and school students. And the idea is that every woman and girl in this mesh, in this network, would mentor the lady below her on the career level, and she will be mentored by the one above her on that career level. And this is really to emphasize the point that the idea that whoever you are, there is someone looking up to you. You are a role model to someone. Even if you are a high school student, that little girl across the street, she is looking up to you for inspiration to do what you are doing right now. And the the appetite for this was really big, much bigger than we thought. We got excellent, hundreds of 260 applications for this program, and we only had 20 places to fill with our 5 selected kind of executive level mentors. And we had to have a slightly more, so we ended up with a cohort of 33 women and girls from 24 different countries. Imagine, from Singapore to Chile, South Africa, everywhere, Europe, and which is really, really incredible. And it runs for 5 months, during which the mentees and mentors meet monthly, and we explore topics every month, like mindsets that hold us back from achieving success, like imposter syndrome, self-doubt, etc. Concepts around leadership, etc. So things that are really topical and relevant for these women and girls. We also ramped up on our social media campaigns because of everything went online. So we had the campaign She Inspires, for example, and this is to emphasize the problems and the obstacles these phenomenal women faced before actually being so successful. I mentioned, for example, Maryam Mirzakhani, the famous Iranian mathematician who did poorly in maths as a student. So this kind of gives the impression that there is struggle, there are obstacles, but still with the dedication and the hard work, we can overcome those. We also launched during the first lockdown, the Scientists Are Fun Too campaign, where we featured scientists and their hobbies. This is also, again, to emphasize the point that scientists are people to identify with rather than just look up to, right? This is the idea behind the scientists these days, like these are geniuses whose ideas fall free from the sky. And so just to emphasize the humanity of scientists and who a scientist is and who can be a scientist. Of course, with the pandemic, everything went online. We went the other way. You won't be shocked to know that half the population of the world doesn't have access to the internet. And even in rich countries, not everyone is connected through the web. And we realized going global, we might be alienating some people. And of course, if you go analog, there are costs associated with that and logistics and etc. So we chose to partner with a charity, an educational charity in Cambridge called Cambridge Science Centre. And they were publishing magazines monthly, weekly during the pandemic, the first lockdown, and now monthly. So we took over this magazine called Open Up Science, which was distributed freely to households in Cambridgeshire, so the region around Cambridge area here in the UK. And we packed it with science stories and games, like a maze or a puzzle, things like that. And it was distributed to about 2,000 families from low socioeconomic backgrounds through food banks and charities, etc. We did this back in August and it was space themed. And now we had recently a magazine on conservation theme. I'll show you a little bit. It's just a tiny little thing that, a child can cuddle up in bed with it. We had a comic on this one, with, maybe with a crayon, just writing and drawing and coloring. And we thought this would, and we've been receiving great feedback about this because, children have this in their hands, and we're very happy about that. And this is an example about the importance of, reaching out, of community, of not reinventing the wheel and partnering with people who can deliver the impact that we need. The people behind it are so many, and I would never be able to do this on my own, obviously. We have a large team of volunteers, and we have a huge team of translators, more than 20 people who aren't mentioned here. We work with illustrators as well, and She Speaks Science was originally funded by Cambridge University and now very generously funded by the IAU OAD. And I keep telling Ram and everybody at the IAU, look, without you, we would not be able to do this. Our hands would be tied. We do not have the capability. And with the IAU, we have really grown globally. And this has been also maybe facilitated by a network I'm part of with the UN called UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, Space for Women network. I'm part of this network, and through this network, we kind of grew our Penta mentorship program, and we have, this kind of synergy and collaboration, and it opened up opportunities as well. So again, about kind of holding hands, bringing communities together, and not reinventing the wheel, but actually seeing what's out there and collaborating. That's it for me. These are the things I wanted to mention. And, if you'd like to be involved, we are looking for, translators, for storytellers, if you work in a STEM field, and partnering and see how we can reach more countries, different places in different ways. And I'm inspired by your projects, and I hope we can manage to work together at some point. And thank you again for the IOU for the generous funding and support.
Thank you. Thanks, Ghina. Sandra, I know you raised your hand earlier. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Rama. Yeah, I just wanted to ask the first speaker, but actually all the other projects as well, because they were talking about evaluation, extensive evaluation of the PASSEA program and the other schools. So I was interested a little bit on how was this evaluation conducted, and maybe also the other projects had interesting methods of evaluating the impact, and if they could comment on that. Thank you.
I can say very quickly, evaluation is one of the hardest things when it comes to the work we do, because it's long-term impact. And this is precisely why we moved from a global model of publishing stories online for everywhere in many different languages, like in 5 languages. I thought, hang on, to capture really the impact, I want to go smaller. And this is why with Penta, we limited to 33, a cohort of 33 women and girls. And what we do is we get feedback every month from all members. How is this working for you? Has it changed the way you think? Has it changed the way you do things? And really by getting these stories, individual stories, for example, they get admitted into internships, summer programs, or, which they're helped by their mentors to get or to know about, etc. And really, when we scale down, we're able to capture these stories. And so there's a balance. How do you scale up? How do you sometimes also zoom in on a specific population to be able to measure that impact?
Thank you very much, Gina. Did you do that by interviews, individual interviews with all the participants?
Yes. So I have a program manager for Penta, and she maintains personal communication with the whole cohort monthly. So we're always talking to them and sending emails and feedback forms and getting that kind of feedback. Yes.
Thank you. Very interesting.
Ofodum or Clare or Michele, do you want to add anything about evaluation?
Yeah, I'm sorry, was that Michele? Did you want to say something?
No, go ahead, Claire, since you've run the evaluation program.
Yeah, so actually we realized at the end of 2016 that we weren't really prepared to evaluate our pilot program. I think in some ways the pilot was merely just whether we could get it going and up and running. And at the end of 2018, we decided to do a solid one. So we did a questionnaire at the start of the school, which was based at their academic knowledge now. And then we gave them a very similar one at the end of the school to sort of gauge how they felt about their particular academic topics that we covered, but and professional development topics that we covered. But we also did, we borrowed the university's student experience survey format, which sort of is a scale. So you scale how, 1 to 10, how much you agree with things, and was it a good experience or what could be improved, and we really sought their input on how we can improve for the next one. Obviously a lot of that structural improvements we tried to put into place by making the school from 7 days to 14 days to give them enough time. and to give them a good enough pace to go for learning, you know, Python and academic and professional. But obviously COVID did interrupt that, but we did take some lessons. And this time we've done much the same thing, except it's all been obviously online. I think the important part for us was making sure that we had some proof that they had made some progress in academic areas and professional development areas, Python areas, but also talking about their actual experience, how they found it, what was easy, what was hard, whether they enjoyed it. And we've also been collecting emails over the last 2 iterations with the express purpose of us contacting them over the next 5 to 10 years to find out their career paths. Which it's a long, you know, it's a long journey, but that's sort of the impact we'd really like to have. So we need those numbers.
Thank you very much. Ofodum, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, it's like I was having some network challenges. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. In line with the question asked by somebody some minutes ago concerning extensive evaluation.
Yeah.
You see, in PASSYA or WAISSYA, as case may be, we believe in evaluating what we've been able to achieve. In contrast to most other summer schools that are often taught via traditional lectures, where assessment is made via students' satisfaction survey. PASSYA, our teaching approach is interactive in nature and is centered on scientific thinking. And this helps us in terms of our evaluation because we measure our students' learning ability via research validated surveys on their scientific belief and concepts, as well as through their learning reflection. That's what we call learning reflection. During our summer school, we normally allow the students, each person every day, to reflect on what they were able to learn yesterday and throw it up for further explanations in case they are not getting it correctly. We also evaluate our achievement based on the number of students we are able to help in terms of our mentorship program. The number of students that are able to get admission for their postgraduate programs like masters and PhD. And we have kept on improving every passing edition of PASSYA. And that gives us a lot of hope that we are on the right track. So our mentorship program, which help us to keep track of our students, to keep track of our alumni, helps us a lot in a kind of in knowing where we are going to, and what we've been able to achieve at any point in time.
Thank you so much. We are 10 minutes over time, so apologies for that. But one last question for all the speakers. May I share your email address to the rest of the projects who may watch the recording later? If everyone is fine with that.
Okay, it's okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. And yeah, I'll follow up with an email to the 2021 projects. Bye-bye.